up, keep your head up. You're not alone. Keep your head up, keep your head up. We're halfway home.
It's time for Your Voices of Hope, a video podcast program that offers straight talk on some of the major issues facing us today: addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, and suicide. But more than that, it's our desire to inspire hope. Now, your host, Michelle Byer.
There are over 500,000 Americans that are homeless and near homeless suffering tonight. 1 in every 588 Americans are homeless in America. Right now, according to HUD, over 190,000 people will be homeless tonight. Homelessness is due to family violence, mental health issues, physical health issues, accident at work. There are so many reasons, unemployment, so many reasons to be unemployed and homeless. My guest today is going to tell you how, with a team of people that she has, she's working so hard to break the homelessness in Stark County. Please welcome my guest today, Julie Sparks, the Executive Director of ICAN Housing. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Michelle.
How are you?
Good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here today. Is that not astonishing numbers for over 500,000 people are homeless in America?
Well, we like to say there's no excuse for it, but it is astounding, and it's sad. And, even then it affects even more folks because they have family, they have loved ones. It's a crisis and a crying shame for a country this wealthy.
I agree, and especially when you hear how many would be veterans. And so that's sad. So now, you work in Stark County. Well, I work as well in Stark County, Ohio. How many are homeless in Stark County, Ohio? I know we had spoken about it just a few minutes ago, and you had a very low number.
It is low. It's really exciting in some ways. We're down to almost 300. In other words, yeah. And while it may sound like a large number, a small number, I was saying that's about half of where we were 5 years ago. So that gives us tremendous hope and confidence that we can continue to really reduce that number in Stark County. Conversely, my heart bleeds for places like Los Angeles and other communities where the need is so overwhelming. It would be difficult to address. So even though 300 of our citizens are not housed, and it's hard on them, it's a manageable number in some ways. I believe that we can get this down to, I think they call it functional zero, and it doesn't mean that no one's homeless, but it means that people are homeless for a very short period of time.
Okay.
And hopefully only once.
Okay. So tell us what ICAN Housing is, and what does ICAN Housing do?
Well, ICAN Housing is an agency that came to pass back in the late 80s when all of the mental health institutions were closed across the country. Fine and dandy, but all of those individuals then became members of our communities and living in our communities. And so agencies like ICAN Housing were created all over to take on that new model and address working with people who are mentally ill and perhaps homeless within the context of the community. So what we do at ICAN Housing is a couple things. We provide housing in 2 different ways. We own 45 buildings in Stark County and 100 units or 100 apartments, if you will. And we house people there either as singles or with their families. And they pay what they can, and we pay the rest. And we also have people like yourself, as you well know, who provide housing support services to them so that, homelessness is it's difficult. And when you've made it to that place, we like to make sure, again, a person doesn't return if at all possible. So by adding support from someone like yourself or one of your peers, then hopefully that gives them that extra support they need to hit that stability and just keep it. So I really value and appreciate that. But we also are able to house people with what they call vouchers, with private landlords all across Stark County. And still, though, we're trying to work closely with those tenants and landlords so that when they do face some of those barriers that might come back up, to challenge them, and I don't want to characterize like all homeless people use drugs or something like that. I don't mean that at all. But the more things that you struggle with, the harder life can be. So.
Right.
It's helpful when there are people like us who can stand beside someone when they're struggling. And so we have those types of housing programs, and that's all well and good, but the folks on the street, those hundreds that we talked about, somebody in the community has to reach out to them. And so that's one of the privileges that we have here. We have the county's street outreach program, which
Right.
means not just that we go out on the street and find people, but also the community, whether it's the police or the schools or whoever, knows that they can call us and say, hey, there's this encampment over there by, the liquor store on 12th Street, which we saw develop over a couple weeks. And we went over there and we addressed it, and now we're helping those people. So we're also helping to get them connected to community services in addition to mental health services, because we are considered to be a recovery support agency. And so that's recovery from mental illness, from substance abuse, from physical issues, all of those things that haunt us.
And our outreach team is something to be very proud of. I mean, our outreach team has just reached, from, in my opinion, high levels over the last few years. I've just seen this just blossom, and our resources that have developed so we can offer people amazing resources. There are a lot of resources out there now.
There are, and I appreciate that. Gosh, when you're homeless, where do you put your stuff, right?
Right.
So, it's fortunate that we're able to source items and then help people meet their needs immediately when they move into a place. The basic need of a skillet and a chair.
So if I find myself homeless, I just lost my job, and I've got my 3-day notice from my landlord. I'm scared. What am I going to do? I've got a couple kids. I don't know. What do I do?
That's a great, timely question, Michelle, because if you think about it, while we're sitting here talking about a few hundred people, we know there's a national crisis going on, a pandemic, and we know that that's putting more pressure on more people, and more folks who have never even thought about experiencing homelessness are now looking it in the face.
Right.
So it's a fair question, but I want to answer it in two ways. One, in every community, and in ours too, everybody's got a homeless hotline. So if you need help, there's one number to call, and they'll start to direct you toward housing and services. So we try to keep it simple that way. But secondarily, this is something that people need to know. Not surprisingly, the federal government has come forward with some funds to help people who have been impacted by COVID-19. So a lot of times we serve people who maybe they've been chronically homeless, they've come from generations of poverty and maybe don't have some of the opportunities that others of us have had. But now we're also seeing people who just lost that job and are floored. But we now have dollars that have come to our community that ICAN Housing is managing through our outreach department. So we have like $500,000 additional dollars right now where we can help people by paying security deposits, by paying back rent, by paying utilities that are overdue, because it's so much better for us as a society and cheaper and healthier for that family to stay in that home. So that's pretty exciting for us to be able to actually help families in our immediate community save their housing and make it across this very trepidatious time.
Yes, it is. And see, that's hope. That offers hope for somebody, because it's scary. I remember when I was actually, I was homeless. I was living in transitional housing. And before I got there, I packed my house up and I was putting it into storage.
Right.
And I remember thinking, okay, well, it's October. I'm going to live between my car and my storage unit. I put my couch in a specific area. I had an extension cord. I was ready to go. And I got very lucky that someone said, hey, this program is not being funded. My house is empty for this program. This is transitional youth house. You can have it
See?
for now.
And look, and you've been stable you've been housed ever since, right?
No, yeah. Then I went to rehab and jail. So
Well,
yeah,
and that's okay. I mean,
I was,
prayers and all that good stuff.
yeah, I was housed ever since.
But you haven't had to hit the street again, so.
No, so but yeah, it's a scary thing. So how once you've housed someone, do you see a lot of chronic homeless that they get housed, but they don't know how to stay housed, and they end up back on the streets?
We do, and that's why I was kind of referring. That's the tough one right there, because everybody's brought up so differently. Everybody's life experience is so different, and there's just some people in our world who haven't been exposed to much, haven't been given much, and literally don't know. I mean, because you're in our field, that there are people who may come off of the street and have to leave the door open or have to sleep on the porch because it's so foreign. And I know that sounds crazy to listeners maybe, but it's so foreign to them, the things we take for granted. Just living in that household, keeping it secure, taking care of it and ourselves, taking medication regularly. There's a lot to be learned, and you can't always overcome it in one lifetime.
No, you
By yourself
can't.
in particular.
It is something that you have to experience, watching. To you, or, to me, I walk into someone's apartment and I'm just like, okay, do you know what a cleaner is? And they don't. They've never cleaned, and that's shocking.
It is shocking.
But, so there's just so many things, and that's basic skills that now as ICAN Housing, we do offer that through the team that I work with.
That's right. It really is, and that's one of the things why we talk about, keeping people under roof with dignity and care, because there's some embarrassment in not understanding these things. There's embarrassment by when you come to realize that your standards maybe aren't, up to community standards, that kind of thing. And even more so, how do you ask somebody, how do you look somebody in the eye and say, I just don't know how to do that?
Yeah.
So the fact that you guys approach people with love and respect and help them get the basic needs they need to clean, for example, and show them how to clean, that's a human gift, and it helps people stay housed too, because the law says, hey, that house has to be maintained to a reasonable quality, a reasonable standard.
Right.
And it may not be a standard that they've been accustomed to. So yes, that's one of the things we can offer, is your team can help them say, oh, this is the more appropriate standard. This is how you do it.
Yeah, they may not even know that it's not clean.
I tell you, 30 years ago when I started this business, I knocked on a door for a young person. They didn't have a phone. I was trying to get them a summer job. And they opened the door and they were sweeping their rug with a broom. Never seen it in my life. But it occurred to me, they don't have a vacuum sweeper. But yet, they're caring and they're trying to take care of it. So there is so much that we sort of take for granted that is not everybody's experience.
Now that leads me to, how long have you been working in this field? You just said 30 years. You've been in this field for 30 years.
I'm in my 31st year and I love it. I love it just like I did day one. I had the privilege for a decade to work with, I've always been in Stark County. I've mostly been in Canton, and I've always worked with people who are struggling, dare I say, with poverty. And whether you want to call it homelessness or mental illness, whatever it might be, there's a lot of similarities in the struggles and barriers, and even in the people, because mental health makes it hard to thrive, for example. So I've always been drawn to it. It's taken different forms, but like yourself, I love Canton and I love Stark County. So I'm highly motivated to help people.
Yeah, it can be rewarding as much as it can be frustrating.
That thing.
Yes.
Exactly. It's like the scales, right?
Yes. So what are you doing to combat this. Now, and let me make this on a smaller scale here, because that could be just, that's asking you quite a bit there. Yeah, so I'm going to actually back this up and start somewhere else. COVID.
Yes.
This has been, just mind-boggling. And we had to close down a property at one point, just a bad area. But when COVID started, you had to go send our maintenance men in there to clean that back up.
Yeah, it wasn't left very nicely either by the crew that left. But I would say in Stark County, our homeless community came together like instantly and put together these weekly twice weekly task force calls. Just sounds nice, but it really just means we all call in together. And as COVID was unfolding, because we were learning so much every day, and there was so much we didn't know, we problem solved in real time and real fast. And so, and we were basing it on, science and experts and all that. And there was every belief, for example, that homeless shelters might get well overrun, and that there might, need to be a place for people to go, and or people who were positive or who were vulnerable. So yeah, we did take one of our buildings and prepare it so that someone who might be positive or more likely to suffer from COVID, they might stay there. And so far, we had a veteran stay there for a short period of time. He was 80-something years old. He had housing waiting for him. So for that little bit of time, we just kept him in kind of a safe place. So it's been like dragging a mountain behind my back. But I think as a team, I'm okay with how well we've done, because I don't think I'm kidding myself when I say I feel like we're still connected to the people we serve. And we still have those relationships. And after we got a better feel for how this virus was going to work, we challenged ourselves to get back out there to do that eye-to-eye contact. And I think we're doing it pretty well, trying to balance like our own safety and our loved ones and anybody we interface with, and yet not leave people feeling left behind. Because here we sit, on the Zoom meetings and all these other things. The folks we're serving, they can't just dial up Zoom and go. So I feel like we're doing very well, and we just met yesterday to talk about all the way through next year, because I do anticipate that this is not going away quickly, and that the way we do business is probably going to be a little bit different even for quite some time.
And I think so too. And so that's where I was going with the one, what are you doing to combat homelessness? Because first we need to start with that. Having someone homeless and then having COVID on top of it can be a really big challenge out on the street.
I can't even imagine.
No, because, someone had said to me, I actually got in, and I don't argue on Facebook at all, especially with what I can't. So someone had said something about the homeless population. And once you say something, whether it's homeless, mental health, or addiction, I'm all over it. So they were saying something about a homeless population, and they're doing this wrong and they're spreading this. And I said, no, they're not. As a matter of fact, yes, they're not washing their hands the way we are, and they're not practicing social distancing, and they're not, they may be in the shelters and things.
Yes.
But guess what? We don't have any that have COVID. We don't have any, none. So where are you getting your statistics, lady? And I kind of shut her down pretty quick. She's like, because I said, that's my population. That's where I work. I work with these, and she couldn't say anything after that, because we don't. We have all these buildings, all these people. We don't have anybody.
I know, and our peers are not having the problem either. So, I think there may be a measure of truth to these precautions. And so, why not take them? Why not try them? And maybe that is a part of our good fortune, just trying to be thoughtful, practical, and safe. We're wearing the masks, but you're still interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
You try not to get real close, but you're still interacting. So
Right.
I think we're doing, knock on wood, I think we're doing well. I think the homeless sector is doing well, and I thank God that the
I do too.
population hasn't
I do
been
too.
hit.
I wouldn't want to be shut in all the time, so I'm glad that it's going the way that it's going. And now, the one other thing that I wanted to touch on is that last October, it's almost a year, a project that became near dear to my heart, which is your baby. You opened up a facility that is the most exquisite apartment building I have ever seen. Tell us about Arbor Ridge that took on 14
I know.
homeless people off the street.
It did, and it gives them a great opportunity. I've gone around the state. I haven't been in homelessness all that long, but in the 5 years I have, I've looked at what other people have done. What have they built? Where are people living? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Do I want to share a bathroom in the middle of a hallway with 10 other people? Got news for you. The answer is no. Do I want to be in a place that's just big blocks and it looks a little prison-y, it looks real hardy and safe because I'm a danger? No. So what we wanted to do conversely was to try to create an environment where a person would feel the absolute best, where they would feel like they could thrive, where they would feel almost like they're $1 million because they're living in a place that's gorgeous, it's brand new. And what I'm finding that I really love about it, it's not that it's without its troubles, people are people, but I'm really proud of the way that folks are caring for their apartments, because I feel like that is their way of displaying back their pride
Right.
that has come from being able to live inside of this exquisitely beautiful place. And I wanted this community, Stark County, to see how it can be done.
Right.
And also to let them know how ICAN is going to roll. So we're going to put out that kind of product, and I would challenge others to do the same.
And the longer I work for ICAN. Now, before I started to work for ICAN almost 4 years ago, I'd never heard of ICAN. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say probably about 6 years ago, I don't ever remember hearing of ICAN or even seeing the building downtown. So and I'm going to attribute this to you, that ICAN is just the most amazing organization helping people get off the street, get into homes, and keeping them housed, because that is our business, keeping them housed.
Yep.
We want as much as we can, we're not miracle workers, to keep them housed, to get them housed.
That's right. And then we have the stable life, stable home idea, or stable home, stable life concept and research bears it out. If I can stay stably housed at this address in this place, I do better, because now let's say I'm connected to a school system. Maybe now I've connected to a church. So I'm sort of integrating into that community. Maybe I'm friends with my neighbor. I'm developing some my own supports.
Right.
So at the minute someone has to be torn from their home, it's expensive for them. It's expensive for whoever was running it. Is it a landlord? Did they just take a hit? It's hard on the children. Next thing you know, oh, well, I have to leave all my friends and go over here. So the investment to keep people under roof, the payoff, is more profound than people probably don't think about it. But if they did, they would recognize it's probably one of the more powerful payoffs you're going to get.
Can you estimate the cost of housing one single person a year?
Sure. Let's assume that they have some measure of income. Maybe they have some Social Security. Okay, so they're going to contribute a portion of it. So let's say we're paying $500 a month toward rent times 12 months, so that's $6,000 there. But then, of course, you have to pay for some maintenance and some staffing and things of that nature. So we're probably going to double that and come in at about $12,000 to take care of someone who. Now there are people who are able to pay more than that, but I just want to use that as an example.
Okay.
And when you spread it out over, it's $1,000 a month. It may sound like a lot, but I'm telling you, and you admitted it, you admitted you did some jail time. So when we're taking people, for example, who have been in and out of jail, not once, but 3, 4, 5 times, think about what, just all the human costs and the financial costs associated with that.
Right.
Now we get them over here at Arbor Ridge. Michelle Byer is working with them with some regularity. Next thing you know, like you said, hey, a year went past. Wow, here I am at Arbor Ridge. You know what? Maybe I will go get that GED. Maybe I will go do that part-time job.
Yes.
That is money well spent.
Yes. And that's where we actually have, ICAN is so awesome. We have an employment specialist who, by the way, is amazing. You know, someone had just said to me, one of our participants, about somebody that, you know, Keith knew, which is our employment specialist. And I'm like, wow, he knows, boy, if I ever become unemployed, I know who I'm going to.
That right. You got that right. You know, statistics have proven that employment is like the best thing for somebody who's struggling with their mental health. And it doesn't have to be full-time. Nobody cares about all that. It's just the idea that you're out there, you're making a few bucks from your own pocket, you have a role, a place in society. But we do a great job with that. And this whole concept, if the people who listen to this, they have to come to understand what engagement means. And you and I talked about that a little bit before the show, but it's the idea yourself as a peer supporter, you have got to just work with individuals and create those relationships and be patient as the day is long for them to get to a place where they're ready to make that move. For them to say, you know that Keith you've been telling me is so dynamite? Can you possibly introduce me to him? I do want to go to work.
That's right. It does take some time. It really does. And you do have to be patient. And that could be very difficult for some people.
It's like an encouragement, it's a loving encouragement, maybe. I know Keith likes to use the term walk shoulder to shoulder, but you sort of put your arm behind the back.
Yeah, right. He does say that a lot. It can be very, very difficult at times. And if you're the type of person that does not understand this type of environment, this type of population, because you've never dealt with it before in your life in any way, shape, or form, you're going to say, well, what is your problem? Come on, this is simple. This is no-brainer. Well, it is for them. So
there's things, you know, we get so cocky because there are things that you and I can't do. We wouldn't have a shot at doing.
yeah.
You know, they like to say rocket science, but there are many things that we would never be able to do without some guidance.
Correct. Oh, yes, that's for sure. So, any plans for now? Arbor Ridge took how much money that you had to go after and just beg?
$2.5 million, 12 different funding sources.
Wow. And are you planning on opening up another one?
I'm working on it. We are working on it right now.
Wonderful.
We have an existing facility that was built back when this all first started, and things have changed. So it's got that institutional feel, yucko.
Yeah.
And so we've applied now for significant funding. We're looking at probably about $3 million, and it'll take me the rest of the year to earn it, but I'm confident we will. And then we will renovate that building as well as add on to it. So we'll have units or apartments that are brand new because they were renovated, and then some new construction. So, I mean, this stuff doesn't happen fast. It takes about a year to raise the money, about a half year before you start construction, and maybe another year for that. So it's a 2.5, 3-year process.
Yeah.
But, you know, what the heck? Time's going to pass anyway, so.
It takes a while. Everything takes a while.
And, you know, our local continuum of care, so the whole homeless system here in Stark County has a goal, in addition, aside from that, of building 54 more new apartments. I'm calling them that because who calls things units? 54 more apartments in the next 2 or 3 years. So even though that's not our responsibility, because I have so much experience in this, in how long this process is, I keep driving them to move because you have to be ready when those funding cycles come around. You got to have your ducks lined up. So
right.
I'm trying to push that also.
Right. Awesome. So we've reached the end of our interview, but not the end of our fight.
No doubt.
Is there something you would like to let us know and share with us about homelessness? And is there something that people can do to help?
The thing about homelessness that I would say, I think you can create a really good analogy right now with COVID-19. Majority of people are more stressed than maybe they've ever been. And so we're short-tempered sometimes and quick to make judgments. And sometimes maybe that same treatment happens with people who are homeless. So I would just say to people, instead of seeing someone who maybe is a different color from you or dirtier than you or whatever, why don't you see your brother? Why don't you see yourself? Why don't you see your sister? Because you probably would cut them a little bit of slack. And you might even say, you know what? I'm sorry to see them like that, but I know why they are. I understand. So some compassion would be real handy. But beyond that, I mean, from a practical perspective, we all see people at the end of the off-ramp, right, with the cardboard sign.
Right.
If anybody who's out there is listening, and I know they're going to go well beyond Stark County, but whether it's Stark County or your other communities, call ICAN Housing or call your homeless folks and just inform them. Because I can't know who's standing on every street corner. I can't know who's hiding in this encampment or that encampment, or even that it exists, unless Michelle Byer, who happens to be driving down the road and sees it, calls me and said, hey, there's some people in need. So your job as the public is to be the eyeballs for the system and just simply share the information. And then let, shall I say, the professionals do their job.
That is excellent. I never would have thought of that. Right? Yeah, I know. I saw that eyebrow raise.
I like to use the analogy, like, you don't know what's happening in my house, and I don't know what's happening in your house because I'm not there. Right?
It's kind of like, because I know what to do, I actually talk to them, and I'll hand them my card, but so I kind of do, but it's not the way you put it. So it's, yeah.
Well, and I think citizens do ask that. They do ask, what should I do? What should I do? Do I give them money? Don't worry about giving them money.
Yeah.
Just get a hold of your homeless system and report what you saw. A mother with a child.
Yes.
Single man, whatever it is. Where is it? And then let us do our job.
Correct. I agree. Well, Julie, thank you so much. You've shed a lot of light on the homeless system, and it's sad, and I'm a lot of people think that homelessness, everyone's homeless because they're drugged out or they have the mental health issues, but there's a lot of people that are not. That's not necessarily true. We actually have one that that was not part of it. He had his own business at one point, so circumstances. So people need to have a little bit more compassion, like you said.
Because we all go through circumstances and we want some compassion when we're struggling.
Right. So like you said, you made that was perfect what you said. So thank you so much for joining me today, Julie.
Oh, and thank you for being a member of our team, because people can hear it in your voice or see it in your face, your dedication, your skill, your love. And that's the kind of thing that makes us what we do, and the kind of things that helps people and helps our community.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So I want to thank all my listeners for listening today. And if you would like to be a guest on my show, please go to my website, yourvoicesofhope.com, or you can go to my Facebook page, Your Voices of Hope. And as always, remember to love yourself. Thanks again, Miss Julie Sparks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Your Voices of Hope with your host, Michelle Byer. This podcast and earlier programs are available for viewing on our Facebook page, Your Voices of Hope, or our website, yourvoicesofhope.com. A new podcast is uploaded and ready to view every Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m.